So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Hearth. Today is Monday, September 4th, 2023. And with us today is Sandra Castellino. We're really glad to have her here with us. She has been very instrumental in supporting Ray Castellino in the development of his work and his practice and all the workshops and trainings that he would provide and offer all of us in the field. And so we're really happy to have you here with us today, Sandra.
Thank you. I'm delighted.
Yeah. And part of today, we're going to just have a conversation with Sandra to introduce her to all of you and sort of let you know who it is who's behind the scenes or what has been behind the scenes for, I don't know, since what, early 90s?
Well, before the pre and perinatal, there was all the other things, you know. Ray and I met at a polarity class with Dr. Stone in the early in the early 70s. And then we knew each other for quite some time as friends before we decided that we were being attracted to each other enough that we should really get married. And that's how it worked. I mean, it's like we were hanging out and we were friends. And then all of a sudden we both thought, oh, maybe this is more than that. We got married.
And I think that's something that a lot of people don't know about you, that you are a polarity practitioner yourself, studying with Dr. Stone and taught it for many years. Isn't
right? Yeah. I mean, Ray and I were following similar tracks. We had both studied with Dr. Stone. We both studied I organized workshops with Pierre at my home, as well as with herbalists like Dr. Christopher and William Lasassier and Michael Tierra. And then when I ended up marrying Ray, we tried teaching together and it didn't work so well with Jim and Cindy, who was Cindy Brown at the time, and Jim File. So I focused on the home, and when I moved, I didn't get another polarity practice going. I was in Boulder Creek. I had this whole polarity practice and teaching and everything going on there, and I moved to marry him, and I turned my energies into remodeling the house and having a baby, and along came Sasha. Plus, Sean came with a package. Sean was 7 when I married Ray. So I became a mom instantly, and went into more of a support role, which I'm quite comfortable with. You know, my chart is all on the bottom, and Ray's chart was all on the top. He was out there in the world, and I was very comfortable being the support person. I love polarity. I mean, I do it on myself. I do it with friends. You know, I just am not charging money at this point. I did it. Anyway, so, you know, Ray was a polarity therapist, and then Rod Newton, who he had turned on to polarity, went to chiropractic school and convinced Ray that that's the next step he needed to take because that's where you could study cranial work. There was no upledger, there was no anything. You had to be a chiropractor or an osteopath or go to one of those schools to study cranial work. So he did. Yeah, I mean, he did that while I was having Sasha. And my mom helped us out financially. And so, like, neither one of us were working, really. You know, I did a little house cleaning and gardening, but that didn't bring much money in. And then I had this amazing baby.
Yes.
And I was very happy to be concentrating on that. And I did little stuff, you know, along the way, but eventually I took over his chiropractic administration of his office. And then we moved the office to the house, and then he went off to see an APA conference because he found out that there was this thing called pre and perinatal. And he came back thinking everything had to do with birth. And I'm like, really, Ray? But it changed his life. And by that time, he was working in the, he was not even working on a chiropractic table. Well, no, he was. We were in the house and he had a chiropractic table in one of the rooms. So there was a long story about his practice here. But anyway, we had moved the practice to the house. And then after he did this birth thing, people were like going into birth sequences and it was not appropriate for them to be on a chiropractic table. So we got rid of the table. So he was working on the floor. And then after a while, it was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore, this chiropractic thing. He just refused to go to a continuing education, saying, what you need to continue your license. Meanwhile, he had started teaching the pre and perinatal stuff. Backtracking a little bit, Ray was a teacher. He taught polarity. Then he had this class called Life Choices, which was about getting married. I mean, he became a minister. He worked with couples. He did various and sundry other classes before he turned into a pre and perinatal therapist. And that there was no name like that then. It was just that everybody he saw that in them, and then he would go for it if they were open to it, and most of them were. So, and he and Wendy started Beba in 1993, and William Emerson quickly realized that Ray had skills that William didn't have, because Ray had all the body work. He had polarity, he had cranial, and he had chiropractic. Not that you could teach chiropractic, but he knew the body backwards and forwards. And Ray brought in Franklin, who he had brought. I mean, he didn't bring him, but Ray was the assistant to Franklin's first US training, along with Claire. So he gradually just got deeper and deeper into this. And he started teaching with William, and pretty quickly he discovered that that was not what he wanted to be doing, that style. It was kind of like a nursery full of very upset babies.
Yes.
and there was no cohesiveness or coherence or whatever the word is. So he decided he wanted to have something where one person at a time would take a turn. And the womb surround started as 10 people in 3 days, which is ridiculous, but and looking at it now, but that's what he was doing. And pretty quickly, people wanted to know what he was doing. So we started teaching classes, and he would teach these weekend classes, polarity therapy or C-section or forceps. And then he got tired of that. It was like, I want a group that I can just take through. His very first training was 3 modules. He got to the end of the 3 and said, I've hardly even done anything with you. Let's do another 3. And so most of the people, 10 people stayed, and that was his first training. And he kept extending it over the years. And I became a support person. I knew nothing about bookkeeping. I knew nothing about graphics. I knew nothing about any of that stuff. But every time there was something to learn, I figured, well, I better learn it. And he was doing this and chiropractic for a while, and then he said, I just can't keep going. My back, from all this stuff you do as a chiropractor, it was hard on his upper back. And his passion was in this other work. So he stopped being a chiropractor, let go of his license, and just took the deep dive, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So that was in the 90s.
Yeah. Thank you for that summary of like the whole projection or progression of Ray and your work and what happened. And I think part of why we're here today is we really want to get to know you, the person who's behind all of that. And I heard you say in the beginning how much you loved polarity. And I'm curious.
So one of the things that that brought Ray and me together was the lifestyle. I mean, besides the attraction, we both really followed this whole polarity thing. We followed the diet, which was vegetarian, the simplicity. We both followed the same spiritual path. And so we kind of wrapped our lives around, this worked for us. And we could support each other in our own path. So, yeah, in terms of me, I quickly figured out that Ray was a genius at what he was doing and not at making money. So I figured out how to, as Sasha says, you took Ray's abilities and created something that we could make a living, and he could do what he does and support so many people. And basically, I create structure. I'm a structure creator. I'm in Aries, and in terms of numerology, I'm a 1, birth force, both of which are people who start things. I'm less good at finishing things.
Yeah, I remember back when I was in the training, there was something we used to think of you as you'd provide the left brain structure and logistics and a lot of that to Ray's right brain, very in the moment way of working. And it was so helpful to have you there. And I know you also said earlier that how much you had to learn. And I think that's part of what we're curious about as you being behind the scenes. And I think Eileen wanted to share a little bit about like your impact on her or her relationship with you in the beginning. So I don't know if this is a good place for that.
Yeah, it does feel like, for me, my path in life is, I'm great at the right brain stuff, but I feel like my path in life has been to improve structures and that. And from the very beginning of interacting with you, I really felt a lot of tone and a lot of support in the way that you navigated me coming into the different programs that I came into. And it felt really good in my body. And so when I started to do my own womb surrounds, when I started to teach my own things, you were really generous with me and really helpful. And so just from working with other, you say that you create structures, but there are a lot of structures that are rigid and non-responsive in this time period that we live in. And what I really enjoyed is I could really feel the firmness with which you held the structures. But it was like a healthy firmness. And then I could also feel the compassion. And I really love hearing about your beginnings and polarity, and even the way that your support position was really informed, as we say in this work, from the inside out.
Mm.
And so I feel a lot of gratitude for the way that you helped me create structures in how I run things. So I just wanted to say um, that there's like a generosity and a heart and an impact that I really felt from our time together. And you know, we haven't actually even met in person, but there's a great impact that I have felt from you for my life.
Mm. Well, thank you. I mean, you were just so eager. Like, whatever Ray said you needed to do in order to work with him, you just did it. I mean, he set it up. You have to take 4 womb surrounds. It's this 4 womb surrounds, co-facilitate 4 womb surrounds. You said, okay. And I do appreciate that comment about the holding the structure firmly but compassionately. I mean, what do? I sit at a computer and I talk to people on the phone and I email. And I actually like tracking things, Excel spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. I enjoy that. And I love supporting the people who are coming into the work who are really serious about it and knowing, you know, how to encourage the next step. So you are a perfect example of, Ray was pretty clear by the time you came along what it really took to make a good facilitator. And he told you what that was and you did it. And he was very pleased with that, I know.
Thanks for
And
saying.
I appreciate that, you know, yeah, I like supporting people. That's my thing. And I like being in that role. So creating structure isn't all about, you know, I like that tone. I'll take that. Yeah, I mean, the times that we got into trouble was when the contracts weren't clear. You know, Ray was very into saying, sure, let's do this and we'll work it out later. And I was like, you don't do that with money. And so, you know, the times that he made promises before we had a contract, we had challenges. And the times when we actually went into things with a clear contract, you know, you were a perfect example of that. It was like, okay, this is going to work. So, yeah, that was part of the place that I hold.
So you mentioned something about encouraging people for the next step. How did you do that? What was that like for you?
Well, I think I suggested to you that you might want to take the training.
We hadn't even met yet. Yeah. I had just met Ray in class, and I didn't even have a lot of interaction with him. I just rolled around on a ball in the back of the classroom, paying attention, but that was how I could stay in the classroom. And I had contacted you about joining a womb surround. And the next thing next thing I knew was you were suggesting, well, if I wanted to do come into the training, that I would need to do a womb surround by yada, 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 what time. And I hadn't even thought of it. It wasn't even a seed in my head, but you planted it. And it started it for me.
Right. Yeah, some people are ready. Or, so that's not atypical. I mean, I do connect with people on a one-to-one basis and see what they're interested in and whether that means, how that would work in our structure, what we can offer and what they might want to take advantage of. So,
So is that part of
was your original? What was your original question?
Well, you had made the statement a little bit ago about
Next
how
steps.
to really encourage people with the next step. And what I'm hearing is some part of you is tracking that, but there's also
Definitely
curiosity in the very beginning of like, where is their interest and what is the path that they sort of see for themselves, even if they might not know it, like in my
Yes. Right. Well, I do that. I mean, when I see somebody who has an interest and maybe some kind of background, or maybe not, but just an interest. And I'm thinking right now about somebody who's applying to our training, who I looked at what she had done with little ones in terms of like kinder classes.
Mhm.
I was like, wow, yeah, this woman, I would love to have her in the training, and it's like, when I see that somebody's already interested in this, it's just like, okay, and here's the next step, and how can I support you? So I tend to do that with pretty much everybody who comes into the training. I know something about them. Some of them I know a lot less, but people follow patterns, and then I know who's going to be eager to do the next thing and who's always going to sign up at the last minute, and, who needs a little nudging and who needs me to back off and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, my thing is, I like this work to continue. So what do I need to do to encourage the flow of, and that's been right from the beginning. So how to encourage people. And then Ray was really good at figuring out how much training people really needed and in what way and what kind of apprenticeships and that kind of thing. And he got better as he went along of knowing what people really needed to do if they were going to learn this material. And then I watched people like you and Kevin spending time together once a week for a year. That's a way to integrate the training. And the Swiss people did that. Not in the same way, but they did it as a group, meeting every 3 months for years. It was like, well, that's going to work. So next steps, it's pretty clear to me if somebody's going to actually do this work, what their next step would be, as far as our work is, anyway.
Well, it's wonderful to hear the details of how you held the helm there. Yeah, it is, you sort of sit there in the driver's seat and sort of were able to really help facilitate what needed to happen for people. But I mean, my experience with you is so much more than Castellino. I mean, I did the polarity training together and the verbal skills together with Anna Chitty, and I got to know you there. And would beg for stories of Randolph Stone. Please tell me Randolph Stone stories. You're like, don't get romantic about Randolph Stone. You know, you're it's really wonderful to be with you, and then to watch you become an assistant teacher there in polarity, and to feel your polarityism-isiness, whatever, watching you teach it a little bit with Anna. And so I have this experience with you too, and I'm curious about what drew you into studying polarity, and what was your spiritual path?
Oh, well, let's see. I don't actually know how I got interested in doing this.
Well,
I think they were connected. I was studying tablas at Ali Akbar College of Music when I both connected with somebody who said, maybe you might want to come to a satsang, and connected with somebody who told me about a polarity class. And I actually don't remember the order, but they were very connected. There were some people who were doing both. And I think it was, I can't even remember exactly what year it was. So maybe it was 72. By 72, I definitely felt drawn to the spiritual path, but I think I was, I don't have the dates really clear, but there was a connection. Dr. Stone followed the same spiritual path, so it was not out of the question that I heard about him through people who followed that spiritual path, and were practicing some form of polarity. But when I came to California, I studied massage at Esalen. And I tried. I didn't know anything. I was so innocent. I got a job at a massage parlor. I lasted one day. I was not there for what people were coming in for. So I just did it with friends. And but at some point, there was a group of us who, we all did happen to be following the same spiritual path, and we also happened to be polarity therapists in the Bay Area, and we would meet once a month. So
what
that
was
kind
that?
of
The spiritual path. Was this
oh,
the one?
what is it?
When you go to India, you went to
When I go to India, it's called Radhaswami, or Science of the Soul. They have a website under RSSB, I think rssb.us. It's a spiritual teaching that's all about meditation. You can be a Buddhist or a Christian or a nothing or an atheist or whatever. It's all about meditating and living a lifestyle that makes it easier to meditate. So there's only 4 rules. You meditate once you're initiated, and you are vegetarian, so you're taking the least amount of lives, which is plants, and no alcohol or drugs. And then one that's really hard is called leading a clean moral life, which means in every day, in every way, treating people with integrity, which is not so easy. So, but you know, the people that are there, or when I go, and that are all over the world, they follow any religion. I mean, they use their own religion for their weddings and funerals and all that kind of stuff. But there are only 4 rules, and so we're asked to meditate. a big chunk of our time, we tithe time, which is 2.5 hours a day. And they never ask for money. You can donate, but they don't ever ask. So we had a teacher named Charan Singh, and he left the body in 1990. And there's another teacher who he appointed, who's now in his 60s, I think, early 60s. Named Gurinder Singh. And there's a community in India where he lives, and where a lot of people who are from India retire and donate their time to making it run. And there are centers all over the world. But it's a very individual thing in terms of the practice. I mean, you each have a relationship with your original teacher. I didn't know I was looking for something when I came to California. I mean, I knew I was looking for something because I came to California from the East Coast, but I didn't know what it was. You know, I tried a lot of things. And then when I found this, it was like, oh, guess I needed this. Mm-hmm. So it's been my anchor for the last 50 years.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I remember during the memorial for Ray seeing pictures of you as the young mother of Sasha, and now I'm trying to see you as the spiritual seeker, the young Sandra finding her way to Dr. Stone and becoming a therapist, polarity massage person, and a mother. And then the structure of this thing, which grew and grew and grew. And I don't know how many people have come through the Castellino Corporation.
I don't either. I don't, I mean, in terms of having taken anything, you know, I have a database with thousands of people in it, but that doesn't mean they've all taken something. Yeah.
I want to hear more about, I'm curious more about you being a mom. You said when you met Ray, you became a mom right away, and then you had Sasha, and while he was, it sounds like parallel time where he started to discover more about what was going on and with William Emerson and the working with babies.
No, this was way earlier. So we got married in 76. Mm-hmm. So Sasha came along in 79. So Sean was 10 when she was born, August 17th. And that was when Ray decided that he should go to chiropractic school, which was why my mother was very helpful, because I had a new baby. And well, I was pregnant when he was doing all these classes. Rod, who convinced him to do this, came down from Oregon for the summer and taught a couple of classes that Ray needed as a prerequisite to going to chiropractic school, like biology or something like that. I don't even remember what they were, but he spent the summer at our house, and we gathered some other people, so he got paid something. And so that was before chiropractic school. And then he was in chiropractic school. Sasha was born, and then we moved a month later so he could continue chiropractic. He'd already started going away for 5 days at a time, coming home on the weekends while I was pregnant. And then he took off he took half semester, 2 semesters when she was born. And he was very much there at the birth and a huge support. So, anyway, he was a chiropractor. That was, I think, 82 or 83, he became a chiropractor. So it was not till the early 90s that he got into this Appa thing.
So
So in terms of me being a mom, I had no clue what being a mom was because I didn't go through birth. Being a stepmom is so different than being a mom.
Mhm.
So I totally credit Sasha for teaching me how to be a mom to Sean. Because when you go through birth, there's all this oxytocin, and you're just like, all you want to do is be with this new creature that just came into your life and just pour yourself into whatever is needed. And it was like, oh, here's this other kid, and that's what he needs. So I remember when she was really little, it was summer. Maybe she was one. That's the summer she turned one. It was hot in Cupertino, so we put a tent in the backyard so it'd be cooler, and all four of us slept there. So Shona was 10, and Sasha, who was a baby, and Ray and me. So it was like the family bed. I mean, Sasha slept with us all the time, but Sean got to be part of the family bed. And I don't know whether he would appreciate me saying this, but it was like a welcoming him into this wombness.
Mhm.
And anyway, I totally credit her with teaching me how to be a mom. But, I did a lot of things for Sean, as a mom, but there was this open-heartedness thing that happened after Sasha came.
Mm.
And I loved being a mom. I still do.
Yeah.
I loved being pregnant. The birth was, it was really challenging, but it was also an amazing experience. Having a baby at the end of this, and having the support to just be with her was wonderful. And I was like a professional mom, like my mother. I didn't really go back to work until she was, and only then very part-time, when she was 3 maybe.
Mhm.
So I got to spend a lot of time hanging out with this amazing person. Yeah, and I still do. I mean, I
Yeah.
spend less time with her, but she's still an amazing person. I mean, one of the things Ray and I did really well, I think, is we raised these 2 amazing kids. And they like each other.
Yeah. Well, I remember both of your children, working with them to do the memorial, and that's where I got to know Sasha and
Oh, right.
and
Yes.
did behind the scenes things together, and they're both wonderful. So I would agree, and I feel that way about my children too. Like, they totally made my life wonderful. I would do it again in a heartbeat. They're grown up now, and
Uh-huh.
I would love to do it all again. Today is my wedding anniversary of 35 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
my husband said something to me this morning, and I said, I do it all again, every minute, starting, because of how wonderful being a mom and a parent and doing that type of thing. So,
I agree. Each stage I kept thinking, it's just gotten better. And I'm still thinking that. It's like, wow. Yeah. So I don't know if that's
Well, you know
answers your question.
what comes up for me as I listen, is that I learned so much from Ray about connections.
Mm.
And even the stories he told of being a high school teacher or different things from his youth, I could really see that he had a focus on connection, you know, and that's even how he innovated this work that we do. And I also hear that in what you're saying, is that that was actually something that you're talking about too, that it seemed like the focus of this work is about connections, the connection with ourselves, connection with each other. And I even hear that in what you're saying, so that there's a way that you as a support person naturally resonated with that from your family life and in your work.
Yeah. You know, I was not raised with some of the ease of connection. My mother was a professional mother and did everything she could to be a great mother. But she was following Dr. Spock, and I was a C-section and a bottle-fed baby, and we missed out on a lot that I got to do with Sasha. I was very into everything natural when by the time I got to California, and I like, oh my God, look at what's out here. They can teach me about diet. They can teach me about natural birth. They can teach me about natural anything. You put natural in front of it, I was for it.
California. Where did you move from, Sandra, to come to
I
California?
had been teaching at a little school outside Philadelphia called Mequon, and I lived in Chestnut Hill, which is a suburb of Philadelphia.
Yeah, I was
taught at
born.
Mequon. What?
I was born in Chestnut Hill Hospital.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, small world.
Yes.
Well, Mequon is still there, and it was there a long time before I came. I just met somebody whose friends went to Mequon.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
what were you teaching there?
First, second, and second, third. I was there 2 years. And they had developed a math program that is now used all over the country in homeschools. Not they. Laura Rasmussen, who used to teach at Mequon, had developed a way of working with Cuisenaire rods and other manipulatives to teach. So little ones, when they were figuring something out, they were moving things around and figuring it out with actual items. And it was a self-paced kind of program, and it worked really well. The year I was hired, she moved on to run the math program for Philadelphia City. And I got to experience this math program there. It's one of the things they did really well. And so I use that with Sasha and with other kids. I've tutored math. I've had classes for little ones. I'm pretty much an expert at early elementary math with kids.
Nice.
That's what I was doing before I came to California. I was in a 2-room schoolhouse, and I don't think any of them had more than 2 rooms in them. It was like lots of nature and these two rooms with one a bathroom adjacent. And I'm losing my train of thought. Oh, the other teacher, the second year, was a dancer, professional dancer who had injured herself. And in a private school, they didn't hire anybody, so they hired her. And she introduced me to all kinds of odd things like movement classes and things that I was really straight. And then she was coming to California, so I said, well, there's stuff going on in California. This was 1968. I think I belong in California.
Oh.
So I came out to San Francisco and never went back.
Makes sense. Well, I'm wondering, Sandra, because we're getting toward the completion, just before too much longer. I wanted to hear more about if you could reflect on all the years of things that you have done all the role that you have played in the Castellino group and the things that you have seen and witnessed. I'm wondering if you could just, what kind of things, if you could have changed, what would you have changed? And what kinds of words of wisdom would you give to people now coming into life? Because I would say
Coming into life?
just coming into life. Like, because I would like, I mean, part of, we have this sort of list of questions that we would ask people, but I feel like, you know, instead of just about the pre-perinatal world, like what kinds of things would you like to say to people if you could about being a human being?
Wow. That's a big topic. What does it mean to be a good human being? You know, I mean, from my perspective, you know, I mean, that's an awfully big question. I try to live my life with integrity and try to keep settling myself back down when I get way too involved with something that's, you know, I can't really do anything about. You know, trying to come back to my own center, and part of what I do to do that is my spiritual practice, and part of what I do to do that is all the things I've learned from hanging around this work. You know, the latest one was, you know, paying attention to my little child and acknowledging that she's there. It's so much easier when you've had a relatively supported life, you know. And nobody comes in with everything perfect, but, you know, being wanted and being welcomed and having a natural birth and all that stuff is such a gift. And anything we can do to increase that. In terms of learning the work, you know, what I see is the more time you spend practicing it and getting feedback from people who are more advanced, you know, that's how people get better. I mean, Ray had people he went to when he was needing help.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a key. I mean, he developed this whole supervision thing that I think is amazing because he saw the need for it. Yeah, I don't know if that's answering what you're looking for.
Yeah, just some reflection and, you know, and guidance from someone who's spent so much time in the field and also so much time being a human being.
Right, 80.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. The word integrity keeps coming up. You know, the times that I have felt I have not been in integrity, I'm, you know, not happy about. And the times that I have, you know, you take integrity and combine compassion, and it's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you get there? I don't know. For me, it's what I said. And hanging around really good people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like, you know, like having a conversation with the three of you is hanging around really good people. It's like, the more I can do this, the better. I mean, I know for myself that I'm very influenced by the people I hang around with. And I think that's true for most people. And there's all kinds of studies about that. And in the past, I have hung around with people that I'm glad that I'm no longer hanging out with. So I think it's important.
I agree.
finding your clan.
Hmm.
And I have so many different clans. You know, I have a spiritual group of people that follow the same spiritual path. I have the people in this perinatal thing that I get to hang out with. I'm hanging out with people I live with. I have family. Yeah, those are my kind of interlocking circles. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for being with us, Sandra. It's been great.
Oh, well,
conversing
thank
with
you. I've enjoyed this so much. Thank you all.
Well, you're an important person in our pre and perinatal community, Sandra, and I feel personally very glad that you are our first one.
Mm.
Hear all the history and to hear, hear the role that you played, hear the ways you felt about it, hear your joys and the things that meant a lot to you. So thank you for sharing yourself with us today.
Mm. You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.